Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Weekly Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today are two of my closest colleagues, two of the guys I've worked with the longest. To my right, John Richardson. John, of course, is the purveyor of the Only Guns and Money blog, formerly known as No Lawyers, Only Guns and Money. And below me, from Self-Defense Gun Stories and the Slow Facts blog, is Rob Morse. Two guys that have been with me on Polite Society longer than anybody else. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on board and joining me on the Weekly Bullet today.
My pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Let me get social media hooked up here because Facebook will not allow me to connect the it will not allow me to connect social media comments until we're actually streaming out to the world. So I have to wait until I push the button before it'll let me connect everything up. But want to remind everybody, if you want to talk about any of the events of the week as we're discussing them, throw your comment in. You can join the discussion too. We'll get your comment on the air and we'll talk about it. Gentlemen, the big story of the week, of course, we had the shooting in Michigan. And as we do on Polite Society, we will never put, even though the shooter's name is out in the general news, what I call the legacy news media, we're not going to put the shooter's name out here. You'll never hear. I'm not going to give that person fame. That's what they're looking for.
Right.
Absolutely.
But we're getting calls for gun control because of this. And it's from the usual sources. But let's face it, John, you were saying before we went to air, the shooter was 15, and murder is already illegal. How much more illegal are you going to make something like this?
Exactly. And, there was talk that his parents have been charged with involuntary manslaughter, which, to my mind, is a bit of an overreach. Michigan did not have any law dealing with safe storage or not allowing minors access to firearms. It's like somebody borrowed your car. It's not exactly the same, but somebody borrowed your car, got drunk, and killed somebody, and they're holding you responsible. I think we do need to bear in mind that you're dealing with a Democratic prosecutor who probably is trying to make her name, as well as calling for more gun control and changes in Michigan law.
John, you are exactly right. There are a bunch of people grandstanding, using this as a springboard for their political careers. I saw an article by our colleague, Dan Was, who said, wait here, didn't Joe Biden help pass the Gun-Free School Zones Act? Didn't Whittemire veto legislation that would have allowed more schools to have armed officers at school? This attack took over 5 minutes. Seconds count. Paul, you had Amanda and I on earlier in the week. She and I have been through the FASTER training. We know what school officials can do. They can respond in seconds. Very responsible school officials, well back after Sandy Hook said, look, police chief, sheriff, I need a armed officer in every hallway. Otherwise, my kids aren't safe. I need them out in the gym. I need them on the edge of the ball field. And of course, the police chief and the sheriff said, can't do it. But we know somebody who can. He carries everywhere else. I gave him a permit several years ago. You're the organization that told him he can't carry at work. And out of that was born the FASTER program, which just now, how many years ago was Sandy Hook? Was it 11, 15? Way back there. Now, in the last couple of years, we find that the demand for armed school staff has grown to the point they can no longer fund it through volunteer efforts. The school districts, when they send numerous employees to be trained, have to start paying some of the freight.
John Petrolino is already chiming in. He says that, I got the wrong. What am I doing wrong here?
Interesting comment. Kyle Rittenhouse was accepted at Arizona State.
Yeah.
The progressive student said, he can't come here. He's an online student.
Yeah. Let me try this again. John Petrolino says, Rob Morse, great segment on Cam and Company this week.
Whoa. From John Petrolino? Thank you, John.
So let me, and I screwed up something as I didn't have the right one up. I got to make some adjustments here.
Well, the one thing I'd like to make a comment on is that the school shooter in Oxford, Michigan, was not unknown to be a troubled youth. His parents had been in either that morning or the day before. I'm not sure whether it was that day or the day before, but they knew he was a troubled youth. We'll just leave it at troubled. And there is now a lot of speculation, and of course it's only going to be speculation, that he had planned this for a long time.
Well, that day, my understanding is that I wish I had the story in front of me, but I don't. That day, the parents had been called in because a teacher had found several disturbing drawings on the student's desk, and the parents were told, look, you've got 48 hours to get this kid into counseling. And apparently the kid had his backpack with him, and the parents are, okay, well, all right. And the school let the kid go back to class, and the parents let the kid go back to class. Kid still had that firearm with him, and yep.
It reminds me of an article I read a few years ago by Malcolm Gladwell in the New Yorker. And what he did, he talked about how school shooters look and study previous school shootings. Mm-hmm. They look at the details. They look at the body count. They look at what worked and what didn't work. And he did the story about a young man who was, by all accounts, untroubled, no problems, good kid, until he wasn't. Fortunately, they caught him before something happened. I would encourage everybody, if they can find it, do a Google search, a DuckDuckGo search, probably better. Malcolm Gladwell, The New Yorker school shooter. Excellent article. It gives you a lot of background on school shooters.
I wrote about this. I'm going to credit Paul Lathrop for the motivation. When he said we're going to talk about it that afternoon, I had to do some homework. I'm going to make a prediction. If this young man is anything like the previous school shooters, we know a lot about him. He's asking his jailers, his parents, his lawyer, can I have a TV in my cell? Mm-hmm. Can I have my cell phone? Can I have a computer? I want to look on the internet. What is the media saying about me now? And as soon as we mention his name, we've started the multi-million-dollar public relations marketing campaign that's trolling for the next mass murderer.
Which is precisely why I've made a policy for most of Polite Society podcast life and all of the daily and the weekly bullets life that we don't mention mass murderers. We don't give them any more fame.
We don't mention their name. We don't show their picture. Mm-hmm. Do you recall the glamour picture of the mass murderer after the Boston bombing, the Boston Marathon bombing? Mm-hmm. That could have come out of GQ.
Didn't he get his picture on the cover of Rolling Stone?
Yeah. where do you want to go next, Paul?
Well, let me get a couple comments in here, then we'll go to our next story. Mike White over on the YouTube side says, but yet didn't the parents buy the gun? And he says, if so, I hold the parents responsible. Mike, this is a very thin line. I do as well, to a point. It looks like, from everything I've been able to read myself, and that the parents bought the gun as a purchase for the kid. Now, individually, there are 17-year-olds who I absolutely believe are able to own and I would trust with carrying a semi-automatic handgun. I trained with an 18-year-old this summer at a Mag 40 who I believe at 17 was certainly able to carry. But it's got to be up to the parents, and then again, the parents have to make the right call. That means we're all human. There are going to be, it's a nasty, messy world we live in. There are going to be issues. That's why everybody needs to be able to protect themselves.
Mike, we routinely cover defensive gun uses on the Polite Society podcast. I cover them on self-defense gun stories. There are a number of them that are where minors are the defender. Mm-hmm. They use dad's rifle. Sometimes they have a firearm of their own. Sometimes they use one that's owned by the adult. Are you out to disarm them as well? Or do you really think that parents are the people on the spot who can make the judgment? Sadly, in this case, these parents made a mistake.
Yeah. And like I said, we live in a messy world. There's never going to be the perfect world that the liberals want, where all the correct decisions are made all the time and nobody's ever hurt. That world doesn't exist. We're not going to ever get that utopia. The best we can ever hope for is we all get to make our own decisions, live our own lives, and we're responsible for our own protection. We're responsible for our own happiness. Leave me alone. Let me be responsible for myself, and let me make my decisions so that I can be happy. That's my perfect world.
At this rate, we'll get to 4 stories this hour.
Exactly. Let's do this. I want to put this one up because this is a bit of good news this week. I want to put this one up on the screen. Senator Chuck Grassley blocks gun control on Senate floor. They tried to sneak one through on us this week, guys.
I'm shocked.
Yeah. They tried to get through universal background checks on a hurry-through on the Senate. It passed the House. Big shock there with a democratically controlled House. They tried to sneak one through on the Senate. And Grassley said, yeah, wait a minute, this ain't going to happen.
Right. An honest man, fortunately, we had one.
Mm-hmm. Somebody who actually read the bill.
Well, and was willing to say, you can throw all the PR talking points at me that you want. I read the bill. I know that guns save lives. This isn't going through.
Mm-hmm. And I think it was Chris Murphy of Connecticut who tried to slip it through.
Yep. It was.
It was a joke anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get 2 comments in, both from Warsaw Patriot, on the last story we had, and then we'll move on again. But he says, aside from this case, I do think parents need to be held accountable if they intentionally allowed any situation of a school shooting. However, I do not favor blaming all parents for every massacre that happens, he says. I'm kind of on the fence on this one. We need more information. On this one, I'm going to wait. It's somewhat like when we first heard about the Rittenhouse, the Rittenhouse charges, when he was charged, I thought, maybe there's information the public hasn't seen yet. Everything when Rittenhouse was charged, boy, he looks innocent. The video sure makes it look like he's innocent, but they brought charges awful quick. Maybe there's something we haven't seen yet. And then the trial happened, and nope, there wasn't. We hadn't anything we hadn't seen. With this, I'm going to kind of wait to see if there's something that the prosecutor has that we haven't seen yet. If I'm really torn. If these parents went and bought a gun for a troubled kid, knowing the kid was troubled, let him take the damn thing to school. Yep, I think they need to be held legally responsible.
Paul, if we go back to Sandy Hook, that murder was in the process of being committed by his parents.
Mm-hmm.
If we look at one of the murders in Colorado, that student we knew was troubled. And in his log, he goes, "Oh, of course. I planned this for a long time. I lied like hell to the therapists who were interviewing me." When we look at the murder at Isla Vista in California, again, troubled guy. The family was begging for help. He'd been interviewed by the police several times, and everybody missed it.
And on Isla Vista, let's not forget that he didn't shoot everybody. It was a mixture of shootings and knives, but all that ever gets mentioned was the shooting.
I think, actually, he beat his roommates with a hammer. It started in his own apartment. He killed his roommates to begin this.
One of the mass killings, and forgive me, because of my stroke, my brain doesn't always recall things as quickly as I'd like. One of the mass killings, the rifle that was used, it was the evil Bushmaster rifle.
Right.
The killer killed his mother to get it.
Newtown, Sandy Hook.
Newtown, yes.
Sandy Hook, right.
He committed matricide.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously...
If only there were a law against murder, John.
That one. Yeah, exactly.
I know, killing your mom.
I'm dying to get to this next one, Paul. Let me go.
Go.
We saw thieves, up to 90 of them at a time, smash stores in California. They'd then run away with up to $100,000 of merchandise. Today, a few days before Christmas, well, let's just say the downtown shopping district looks like Louisiana after a hurricane. Plywood everywhere. Now, the public saw this too. They didn't see it eye to eye. They saw it on the news. They know that liberals are impotent to protect the average man on the street. We didn't tell them that. They drew their own conclusions. You and I are on our own. And last month, November, was another near record month for firearm sales.
Mm-hmm. Let me throw this up on the screen. 2021, November 2021, second highest gun sales year on record. So yeah, busy
Absolutely.
month.
So
I remember going to a conference in Union Square, San Francisco, back in 1999. We stayed at the St. Francis. Somebody else was paying for it. And you had your Nordstrom, you had Macy's, you had the flagship store for Levi Strauss, you had fancy stores all over the wazoo. None of them were boarded up. It was the high rent district. I wouldn't recognize it now, I'm sure. It would look like Lake Charles after a hurricane.
Right.
It's unfortunate, but it's predictable.
You're right.
Of course.
Infinitely.
Especially with their district attorney.
Right. We had district attorneys who said we won't prosecute property crimes. We had the legislature who said, $900. We're not even going to prosecute that for shoplifting. Okay. They industrialized it and, did it en masse.
Yeah, it's like the meme I saw this morning. It's a small shopkeeper in California. everything's priced $951 and above. Hershey bar, $951, so they can prosecute it.
Right.
I mean, it's a joke, but still, it points out the fallacy of their law.
It would be interesting, John, to essentially add $1,000 to all your prices. You're a buddy of mine. Here's $1,000 discount, right?
Yeah.
That way you can prosecute. Yeah, I like it. You put up this next one, didn't you? Oh no, I did that. U.S. Nevada Supreme Court. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say it's been a kind of a mixed week in judicial rulings. We win some, we lose some. You put up the one about Nevada Supreme Court saying that the gun makers were not responsible for the assault on the Harvest Festival at the Mandalay Bay Casino. And I think they were also protected under the Protection of Lawful Commerce under Arms Act, but they found them not responsible under state law, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And then another judge at a lower court level, and I don't know my counties in Nevada. I'm sorry. I don't know where Lyon County is, but he granted Polymer 80 a permanent injunction against what they call it, ghost gun. He found the law there being unconstitutionally vague. So there were 2 wins out of Nevada. And then there are the other places.
Let's not forget Dick Heller's win in D.C.
Tell me about that.
The ghost gun ban in D.C. went so far as to any polymer-framed gun.
Oh my gosh!
Is all blocks. Yeah.
Yeah.
So why are your police departments carrying an illegal weapon there?
That's exactly right. No, it said the law said that there had to be 3.2 ounces of metal in the frame, and of course no polymer frame gun has that. So, yeah.
And they changed the law rather than fight him in court.
Mm-hmm. Let's jump into a loss, although it's almost comical. The U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, California, Western states, said that any gun control bill that vaguely sounds good, yeah, it's legal. Now, the 3-judge panel initially found that California's magazine ban, quote, cannot pass constitutional muster, whether analyzed under strict scrutiny or intermediate scrutiny. The full court, which it isn't really, it's en banc of 11 judges, basically ignored that decision. And it reads in part, the court applied a 2-step framework to review the Second Amendment challenge and determined that intermediate scrutiny applied because the ban imposed only a minimal burden on the core Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. Close quote. Okay, it's a minimal infringement. Let's apply it to the people protecting judges and to law enforcement officers. Because according to the judge, it's a minimal infringement, inconsequential. Yes. Good. Now let's see when all pigs are equal, how
applied to all state actors.
Yep.
And I think that they also said, well, the state has an interest in preventing and controlling mass shootings or something along those lines.
Well, and again, I commented about the attack in Michigan. The reason magazine capacity matters is if there is another armed individual there ready to stop the murderer. In a gun-free zone, there isn't someone willing and able to shoot back.
Well, the reason it matters is it mattered to Kyle Rittenhouse because he was attacked. He had reasonable fear for his life from not 1, not 2, but 3 armed attackers. 4 armed. You're right.
He got kicked in the head.
Yeah. And he needed a 30-round magazine. He absolutely needed that 30-round magazine. At a 10-round magazine, the guy's dead.
Well, the other thing is, I was going to say, a magazine capacity limit will not limit the number of people that are shot. Joe Huffman, a blogger in Washington State and Idaho, did a YouTube years ago where he showed how quick he could change a magazine, and it was maybe the difference of 1 second or 2 seconds to get 30 rounds downrange. Drop, load, drop, load, drop, load. Done.
Mm-hmm.
I reported on a home invasion where there were 6 attackers that tried to invade this guy's home. Really? You tell me, I don't want my wife only having 10 rounds in the gun.
Well, years ago, we did a DGU on the Polite Society podcast where a gun store owner who had an apartment above his store,
right,
thieves rammed a truck in the front door, and he went down and, with his AR, with the 30-round magazine, won the fight, chased them off, and then he said later, I was stupid. I had no backup magazine. I only had what I had with me. I should have had something, so if I needed, because there were multiple attackers.
Mm-hmm. You know,
wow.
Let's and we've said this, we discussed this on Polite Society in the DGU segment many times. Handguns suck at stopping power. So if you're talking, especially when you're talking magazine limits on handguns, it's asinine. One-shot stops with handguns are extremely rare. One-shot stops with rifles are fairly rare. It doesn't matter if you're talking the evil AR-15, the vast majority of which are 22 caliber, believe it or not, 223 or 5.56, which are different but nearly the same. At any rate, one-shot stops are not all that common. You need, most of the time, 2 to 3 shots to stop the threat. That's why the military, when they issue, the rifles they issue most often come in 3-round bursts. And when they train shooting with single round, they train 3-shot groups. So, go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to say, not that I'm paranoid or anything, but my home defense rifle, an AR-15, I have duplexed magazines. So I can drop one and put the other one in almost instantaneously. Mm-hmm. It was something I picked up from Matthew Bracken. It was some duct tape, a pencil. They're kind of like that. Drop in. It's what he used in the Navy SEALs. Now, I don't plan to be a Navy SEAL. I would never pass it. I'm not playing one on TV. I just want to be prepared.
You didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, did you?
No, I slept in my own bed. But what I would also say about it, the high-powered 223, in most states, many states, it's illegal to use for deer hunting.
Right.
Yeah.
It's considered too small. Inhumane. It would wound the animal rather than kill it promptly. I want to go on because here
can I get real quick? Can I get a couple comments in?
Oh, please.
Because we've gotten a ton of comments in. I'm not going to be able to get them all in, but I want to highlight just a few of them. Charles says Academy Sports has stopped selling 30-round magazines because of political reasons. Charles, I'm going to say Academy may have done that, and that's unfortunate if they did. However, I will just about guarantee you if you do a fast search on DuckDuckGo or Google or wherever, nobody else has. And they will ship to anywhere but California. And California don't give up hope. The court, the California court may have decided, and the Ninth Circuit may have decided, but You know what? My boss loves suing the state of California, and we aren't done yet. So don't give up hope. But Charles, what I would say is do a fast search on the internet. There are lots and lots and lots of other places other than Academy that are still selling and would love to ship you some magazines.
Other than Dick's,
Yeah.
who lives up to their name.
Warsaw Patriot, Paul, you stated 2 shots is not enough or more. In Chicago, a thug was charging towards a police officer, and the officer had to put 6 or 7 rounds in him after telling him to stop multiple times. The thug, let me see if, and that's where the thug was on crack or something. If they're on drugs, you've got to as Massey Youb says, you've got to hit their off switch. You cannot just they don't feel pain, which is normally what stops people.
I remember Mossad had something on the Pro Arms podcast long ago where he was talking with a police officer from Chicago, and they had shot this guy 12 times, including 6 shots with a .44 Magnum, and he was still going.
Rob,
Wow.
I remember you and I talking with Ben Branham once when he was on our show. And I specifically remember you, and I don't remember, John, if you were in on that interview or not. But I remember, Rob, you and I talking with Ben Branham, and he was talking about he had believe it was an M4 rifle, and he was aiming at this guy. He's going, please don't pick up that rifle. The guy reaches for the rifle. He puts a round in him. Please stop picking up that rifle. The guy keeps going for the rifle. He puts another round in him, and he keeps putting rounds in this guy's. Please stop. Please stop. Is what he's thinking, and he just puts round and round and round into this guy, trying to get, hoping the guy stops, and he just had to keep feeding rounds into the guy before he finally quit doing what he's doing. Let's see here. One more, and then we need to move on to another story, I think. Let's get this one in. Whoops, I hit the right button there. 3-round burst started with the M16A2. Never used it. For CQB training, They taught 2-round controlled sequence. All right, that works.
Very similar to what you're taught with a handgun.
Yeah.
Consistent manual of arms.
Yeah, and he also says 223-556. Even the Department of Defense said it was an underpowered round.
It was designed to wound.
Well,
it was a great job.
I'm going to say, for me, I don't want to be shot with a 22 short. Okay, so but
Gotcha.
I'll take 223 over 9mm out of a handgun any day of the week.
Right, you are.
All right. So
on to the Sixth Circuit.
Yeah, let's go ahead and talk Sixth Circuit. Go ahead, Rob.
In this case, an en banc decision upheld the ban on bump stocks. It was a leaner, 8-8. The lawsuit was brought by GOA, who said, yep, we're going to appeal it to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Yeah, and they had won in the originally in the Sixth Circuit when a judge, I think appointed by George W. Bush, said, sorry, ATF, you do not have the right to make law. That is something reserved for Congress, especially when it deals with something that would have a criminal penalty.
Right.
Now, if this had been an 8-7 decision, anything other than a tie, it would have been a win. And I'm kind of thinking the Supreme Court, not that they care about bump stocks, but they care about Chevron deference and administrative agencies making up criminal law, might just take it. Fingers crossed.
Maybe. Yeah.
I'm myself, I am, and not to beat an old story, but I'm really looking forward to April to June timeframe sometime. We've talked the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin case to death, and we're going to continue talking about it until the decision comes down. But that one will for sure tell us what the Supreme Court in its current configuration is going to do going forward as far as gun rights. And I'm supremely hopeful it is a hard slap down for New York State and a hard affirmation of our gun rights.
Oh, more than just the win-loss, we hope they will establish a clear method of evaluation. Hi, guys. It's strict scrutiny.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'd be willing to see a 5-4 decision, so long as Clarence Thomas gets to write the opinion.
Okay.
John, do you own a revolver?
I own many revolvers.
I thought you did. Paul, I want to jump down to our latest firearm safety expert, actor Alec Baldwin. Actor, producer, defendant Alec Baldwin recently said, and I quote, "I feel no guilt." Close quote, because I didn't press the trigger. He wouldn't feel any
guilt if he would have throttled Biden with his bare hands.
Okay, but we do know that Baldwin did drop the hammer. The firearm was cocked. He said he was trying to lower the hammer. It escaped out from under his thumb. The hammer went home, discharged the chamber, fired the cartridge, and that killed the director of photography. Friends, basic firearm safety: don't drop the hammer, don't drop the trigger on a revolver unless you know the chamber was empty. That was an invention, the transfer bar. Okay? Early
From
firearms
what I've
didn't
understood,
have it.
and
John,
from what I understand, the firearm in question was not like an original Colt. It was a Uberti clone and had the transfer bar. Now, with the single action Army, you could hold the trigger down and fan the hammer, and you could shoot quickly. But that also presupposes your finger has closed on the trigger, and the trigger is down. Dropping the hammer. Well, there's no way to drop a hammer on a revolver without having your finger on the trigger.
What I want to do is...
Excellent point.
Because you can't
it won't
undo...
release.
It won't release.
Right.
I'm going to lean on... I was looking at Facebook earlier today, and a man I greatly respect, Marty Hayes, had something similar to this to say. And I can't quote him because I don't have it in front of me, but he wants to wait until a real arms expert looks at that firearm, because he's had Sears fail on guns he's handled before. And I guess I'm going to go ahead and go with that. Marty is certainly much more of an expert on that stuff than I am, but I'm going to say this. Yeah, I remember going back to the early 90s before I was into handguns at all. I remember seeing videos. I believe the gentleman's name is Bob Munden, who took a single action revolver, and what he did was he would hold the trigger, and he would use three fingers, the thumb and two fingers, the thumb, middle finger, and pinky, and he would rotate his hand, and the gun would fire just like a machine gun. It was brap. The rate of fire he could get out of a six gun was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
We have millions of new gun owners who are may well still be on the edge of firearms culture. If you have an older firearm, a revolver, it is every bit as lethal as a modern firearm. Mm-hmm. It may, in fact, be more dangerous than a contemporary firearm. It may not have all the safety features that we now consider essential. Get training, have someone look at it. If it's not the gun for you, trade it in, get something else.
And again, we've had so many comments. I can't even hope to read them all, let alone get them on the air. But I want to get this one on the air quick. Clovertack. By the way, thanks for tuning in, man. Munden was a beast. Yeah,
Yes.
I don't remember. I go to YouTube and just do a search for Bob Munden. The man was amazing.
He did Fast Draw as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, yeah. And he had sort of a dry sense of humor about him.
Mm-hmm.
Like a reporter goes, "That's amazing." He goes, "Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. we study it under a high-speed camera, and we're out to shave hundredths of a second, and he did it. Oh my goodness!"
Yeah, one I remember seeing of him, what he basically, and I posted on Facebook the other day asking about SAS shooters. What he was famous for is he would do the cowboy shoot. He would shoot from the hip, and you would have balloons set up, 10, 15 yards from him, 2 balloons, and he would shoot, ba-bang. He'd go from the hip, not coming out, not aiming. He would go from the hip, ba-bang, and get both the balloons. Clovertack also said, fully operational and functioning single-action revolvers are super safe by design, even older ones without, quote, safety features. Again, fully operational and functioning. Remember, these firearms that are used on movie sets, these are used by actors who don't have respect, people like Baldwin who don't have respect for the firearm. So goodness knows what kind of abuse they've been through. So I'm certainly not going to blame the firearm.
No, and the other thing that really galled me about his interview with George Stephanopoulos, like, I would never point a gun at anybody. Well, the gun didn't point itself.
No, it didn't. It did not at all. Mike wants to know if Munden, and I don't know the answer to this, was he faster than Jerry Mikulik? They are two different eras. I don't think they were
contemporary.
No, there are two different eras. That would be, if we had a time machine, that would be one for the ages, man. That would be
Both are amazing competitors. They had different emphasis. Jerry brings the firearm up to eye level, and he's an incredible shot. By the way, he often competes at a range very close to me. What's amazing about Bob Munden, remember the modern school of handgun, where instead of shooting with one hand, we brought 2 hands up, we used the sights, got rid of the FBI crouch, and that developed out of a firearms competition in California, John, 1950s?
I think so. Sounds right.
And people, very smart guys, very deliberately analyzed what worked, what was better, and they incrementally developed the modern 2-handed presentation. And Munden said, well, only if you miss from the hip. And he refined his skills, became an amazing expert, and didn't miss. Wow.
Well, I mean, you go back to the old Bill Jordan books, and he's always shown firing from the hip.
Right. But there are comments about Jordan seeing something like a USPSA match, and he goes, "You can do that with the sights?" And you go, "Yeah." Wow, I didn't know.
They actually work.
Right. Remember, a lot of early 6 guns of the period where of the Baldwin firearm probably didn't have rear sights. They may not have had a front bead.
Because the front sight is going to slow you down coming out of a holster.
A leather holster, right?
I want to get another story in, because we're down 15 minutes left. Although if we go a little long, we go a little long. But I want to get this story in. I want to go to the GoFundMe removes page supporting Army Sergeant who shot and killed a Black Lives Matter protester. Now, this isn't just some protester that was holding a sign that was, that was saying Black Lives Matter. No, this was a protester that was coming after this guy with an AK-47. And the Army Sergeant...
I remember that.
The Army Sergeant defended himself with his own firearm. And now the GoFundMe has taken the page down for the defense of this Army Sergeant. So, yeah. This, GoFundMe has always said we don't do legal defense, but this is I don't know. Help me out, guys.
Well,
my brain is freezing.
Beside GoFundMe here, the other issue is you have another George Soros-backed district attorney. If somebody has pointed a loaded rifle at the sergeant, which he did, the sergeant had a legal right to defend himself. So he's up on murder charges, which he should never be up on. If the guy was driving an Uber, making money on the side because his military pay wasn't enough, and to my mind, it was a true case of self-defense. If I point an AK-47 at you and you're in a car, and I'm in a car and you point an AK-47 at me, if I don't run you down, if I shoot you, it's because you pointed a gun at me. And you threaten lethal force.
John, again, I think this is payback. It's a political action by a prosecutor where even if the sergeant is found innocent, and we hope, actually, he's found not guilty, we don't find him innocent, my bad, the prosecution is the penalty.
Yes. Yes.
Paul, there's one story I'd like us to talk about. Would you mind?
Go for it.
It's one of the last ones. And this came up on Town Hall. Who wrote it? Chris Bedford. Said the Rittenhouse trial's over, but look at it. Look at it in total. The men and women who run Silicon Valley couldn't have been more clear about where they stood on this trial. Facebook, TikTok.
Twitter.
What?
Twitter.
Yeah.
Twitter.
Wow, yes.
If you said, here's evidence that exonerates Rittenhouse, you earned a penalty. Often your page could be shut down. At least you'd have that post removed. Wow.
Catch a 30-day ban in the case of Facebook. Yeah.
So big tech and the liberal media, think of it. MSNBC, CNN, NBC, CBS, all of them portrayed him as a racist murderer, as far from the truth as it could be. And despite that, you and I know the truth.
Yeah, the story's right here. Let me put this up. Big tech couldn't shout down Rittenhouse and the truth. Yes, absolutely. On this one, or at least whatever they're calling themselves on the corporate level, Meta or whatever, they did reverse themselves and say that you're now not going to catch a ban just by mentioning Rittenhouse anymore. I
think probably the most interesting story I read about, not necessarily but about the media in general and how they covered Rittenhouse in the beginning and then now, was by Barry Weiss, who used to be an op-ed page editor for the New York Times and left when she was not considered liberal enough or progressive enough. And she said, a year ago, when I read the media, I thought he was a vigilante, white supremacist, who had killed 3 black men, had crossed state lines, the whole 9 yards, with a firearm, all And says, now I know the people, he was a 17-year-old who did not cross state line, who had relatives in Kenosha, who did not cross state lines with a firearm, who's, and I don't want to call them victims, who the people
Attackers?
he defended himself, his attackers were all white.
Mm-hmm.
The attackers that were shot were all white. He said, the media failed.
Oh, yeah.
The media continued to lie.
There's one story I would like to get to as well, and this is in the color me shocked category here. I'm going to put this one up. New Jersey Governor Murphy pushing for more gun control in his lame duck session. You know, the guy just barely, and I mean squeaked by getting reelected. And what does he do as soon as he gets back in the governor's chair? He goes pushing for more gun control. He wants to make sure the next New Jersey governor is Republican. That's what he's looking for right now.
I think, Paul, he wants to make sure that when he runs for Senate, Mayor Bloomberg will fund him extensively.
Yeah, that could be, because the ones that are mentioned in the article here, and that article, by the way, was up on AmmoLand. The gun control push in New Jersey this time, and they've done this multiple pushes before. They want to ban 50 caliber firearms. Now, I want to know how many Barretts have taken down 7-Elevens in New Jersey. Honestly, gun registration for residents moving into New Jersey. I don't know how many of them there are, but ammunition registration and microstamping, which, oh, by the way, if you've got a nail file, can be defeated. So,
more to the point,
I don't think Murphy...
law enforcement will be exempt from all of those.
Yes.
Of course. Now, I don't think even Murphy actually needs Bloomberg's money. He was he worked for Goldman Sachs. He went through an IPO where he made his net worth is well over $50 million. He could fund his own campaign.
Okay.
Though, of course, it helps to get other people's money.
OPM.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a few stories we could choose from. I like this one, Paul. What about the one out of Missouri?
Is this the one you're talking about? New bill could change Missouri's stand your ground law? Is that
right?
The one?
That's the one. Other states have it already. Basically, the framework says you're charged with a crime. You defended yourself. By the way, you did everything appropriately, lawfully, morally correctly, I'll go so far as to add. Okay, then you're now exempt from civil suits.
Okay.
Basically, another version of
Oklahoma,
Kyle's Law.
Oklahoma is working on something to the effect of, and I covered this on the Daily Bullet earlier in the week. Oklahoma is working on something to the effect of, if the government brings charges against you and they are laughable charges. I mean, if they are extremely weak charges, you can sue the government and get the cost of your defense, your work, your cost of your time off of work. You can sue to get your what you were out of recovered. So
you can be reimbursed.
And
John,
still, it's a
the prosecutor themselves can be held liable. Not
key
just
is,
the
though,
state.
but the key is it's a reimbursement.
Yeah.
Most people don't have the millions of dollars it costs to put on an adequate defense up front. Mm-hmm. And yes, it's nice for reimbursement. And don't get me wrong, I agree with it. But on the Missouri law, I know in North Carolina, that is part of our law. You cannot be sued under our castle doctrine if you have killed somebody entering your house illegally, breaking in, whatever, and you were in fear of your life, you cannot have civil charges brought against you.
I want to get 2 comments in going back to New Jersey here quick. Let's see here. Hit the wrong button. There we go. Most New Jersey politics are based off of New York, Warsaw Patriot says. Well, that's kind of true, yes, but they're trying hard to outstrip New York. They want to try real hard to get to state. They want to get into 50th position instead of 49th position in the most, in the worst states of the nation. And Warsaw Patriot also said New Jersey really needs to get back to what a better state it once was. Believe it or not, New Jersey was won by Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan twice won New Jersey when he ran for president. The government, the Democrats have had a stranglehold for many, many years, but Reagan won New Jersey. I believe that freedom can come to New Jersey. I believe freedom in the form of gun rights will come to New Jersey, kicking and screaming via the Supreme Court, and not too distant of the future. Let's see here. I think I screwed up. Craig just comment. Craig DeLuz, Craig is watching. Craig, if I scheduled you today, dude, I screwed up. I am sorry. Craig is watching. He tried to log in. Apparently, I scheduled him today, and I forgot about it, and I screwed up. So, Craig, I am sorry.
Do we want to close with the story out of Pennsylvania, or you just want to sign off now?
Where are we at time wise? 57. Let's go with Pennsylvania. I can't find it on my screen, so just go ahead.
Anti-gun Democrat Governor Tom Wolf kept his promise and vetoed the Senate bill that would have authorized constitutional carry, permit optional carry in Pennsylvania. So, this was politics. This was chess, not checkers. Not to demean checkers. Some of those guys are incredible. But the pro-gun Democrat who says, I support the right to keep and bear arms, but Tom Wolf just cut their legs out from under him.
Mm-hmm.
John, what do you think?
I agree with you. I look at Pennsylvania, and I think it's a lot like Missouri. You have 2 large cities on either side of the state, and then everything in between is fairly conservative.
Right.
And let's say Pittsburgh is not all that liberal. It's a little bit, yes, but it's not all that liberal. Philadelphia, on the other hand, Philadelphia wants to be New Jersey in the worst way.
But not Camden, New Jersey.
Right.
Nobody wants to be that.
Not even Camden wants to be Camden, New Jersey. The Tom Wolf. The good news here is Wolf is a lame duck. His term ends in January. I'm sorry. I'll have to look it up. My brain is undergoing a major freeze right now. He's in either the last year and a half or the last year of his term. I think his term ends in January 2023. He cannot run for re-election.
Paul, one of the leading Republican contenders, just dropped out. He's in the middle of a messy divorce. I think he was a representative or a state senator. So I hope you're right. I hope a decent pro-rights candidate runs, is supported, and replaces him.
And I don't care which party that candidate comes from. I really don't.
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, one of the declared candidates is the Attorney General, who got there only because of money from Michael Bloomberg.
Right.
Josh Shapiro.
And I certainly hope that one of the... I'm going to leave it there because my brain is just going into total lockdown. So I do think it's time for us to shut this down before I go into full post-stroke apocalypse here. But my ability to talk is quickly going away. So thank you for watching the first successful weekly bullet that we've had in quite some time. We tried 2 weeks ago, and the internet crapped out on us. But yeah, mid-show, it was Mike Piwowarski and Teresa Einacker, and we were just going mid-show, and all of a sudden, from a construction area about 2 blocks away, somebody got rather
aggressive with a backhoe?
Aggressive with a backhoe, and I lost internet for a day and a half. So I had the internet back just in time to go back for the Daily Bullet on Monday. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for watching. Get it in your schedules to come back and join us every Saturday at noon Central Time. Craig, if you're still watching, hang on. I'll be getting in touch with you very soon. I want you to come join me next week if you're available. We're going to be having different people come join me every week. We're going to be going over the news stories of the week in depth every week, 12 noon Central Time. Thanks for watching, everybody.